Shane Brodie, I suppose Shane, every time I seem to be talking to you, it seems to be about a haul of medals that that the club have brought back from some far-flung part of Europe, and this time is no different. Tell us about your recent trip to Portugal.
Morning, Raphael. How's things? Yeah, that's all true. I just want to introduce, this is Darragh Keefe. Darragh's a teenage lifter, lifting us over the last 2 years, and he's first time out at the World Championships. Darragh was lifting in the drug tested division, so Darragh's been one of the most upcoming lifters we have here at the club, himself and another young teenager. So yeah, we went out on 15th to the 19th of November in Portugal. The Irish team itself had a panel of 21 lifters that turned up to lift. Unfortunately, we had 2 dropouts in the week or 2 before it due to injuries. One girl got sick and another guy slightly picked up an injury. Both had to withdraw, so the team was reduced to 21. Out of that 21, here at the club, Southside Barbell, Limerick Powerlifting Club, we had a 6-man team heading out there. And that the team here from the club itself took back to come 8 medals, 1 absolute best lifter and 1 best lifter in the Masters. So we had great success out there. It was a great championships and we were very happy to be there. But yeah, once again, the club did very well. A total of 8 medals, so all gold. So we were very happy with that.
Yeah, and I suppose a nice break too from when you consider the restrictions that we've had over the last few years. Nice to get away for something and just have some bit of release and some bit of enjoyment that we haven't had for such a long time. And as a team and as even for bonding, it must have been a lovely trip. Regardless if you took the medals out of it, I'd say it was still a great experience.
Yeah, you know, after 2 years of not traveling away and.
Yeah, because again, when I look at you, Shane, it's Las Vegas for this competition, or it's forever for this, and I'm going, Jesus, this lad, he's travelled the world with this sport.
That's
and
it, 2 or 3 times a year.
To be curtailed for that long, it must have been tough.
Yeah, and you know, some of the lifters had been out there for the first time. I think 11 of the lads was their first time competing at an international with us, and that's a big number for the first time. But I think everyone, just the spirits of the team, just getting on the plane, getting away for the first time in 2 years. No one had even been as far as England due to the lockdown. So, it was great. We had the worry of, would there be other lockdowns in different countries and would we be able to travel? But thank God it was great. We got there and we did what we had to do.
Yeah, and even for yourself as a club, trying to keep it going in the last 2 years and trying that struggle to keep things, to keep fellas training, to do what lifters like Darragh who were starting out in the sport, to keep those guys, to give him that outlet. Credit to yourself for sticking it out, but it must have been a hard slog too.
Yeah, COVID's had a major effect on the club. To be honest, looking back, we're lucky to be still open. We're in rent arrears due to the lockdown. We got back sooner than some of the other gyms and commercial gyms around town as a club, and classed as elite athletes. We got back a little bit earlier to train during the summer last year, which was a bonus. But the struggle is still real. There's still arrears to be caught up on, and that with the club. So, COVID has been had a detrimental effect on the club. So, but we're back, we're training. Hopefully we'll have no more lockdowns, and we're rebuilding. We did lose some members due to COVID. They haven't come back afterwards. We've gained a few as well, new members. But I suppose, as long as we don't go into any more lockdowns, we'll be happy.
Darragh, tell us about the experience.
Well, as Shane said, it was my first international comp, so the nerves were real coming into it. But definitely the team spirit helped, like everyone screaming at you and roaring and everyone bonding even before and after the competition. But once you got your first kind of squad in, I was grand. I kind of settled me down a small bit, but I was delighted to come out with a gold medal anyway in my first comp, so here's to many more.
Yeah, and I suppose, look, the buzz around that, again, you've probably, being your first competition and going out with veterans like the guy alongside you who's got 3 decades, Shane, am I correct, of
powerlifting? Yeah, 3 decades, but I was
Yeah.
coached by the best, and I learned a lot at a young age. So
what was that feeling like, Darragh? I suppose to be kind of stepping on the plane and you're looking around and seeing, geez, these guys have been there, done it before. As a first time guy traveling abroad for that competition.
Well, it's a great confidence boost knowing Shane like for 3 decades, like knowing he's done it all, and like getting coached from Shane is just a big help, like, you know, and just being a part of a team. Like if you're going out there on your own, like you'd be, you know, just being part of a team is a great help, like.
And Shane, I suppose, look, just going back to yourself for a second there, huge tradition of powerlifting in Limerick, not just currently, but we're talking going back over years and decades.
Yeah, it goes back decades.
It's sometimes kind of, it's a sport that goes under the radar, but when you kind of dig a bit deeper, you see there's a rich tradition of powerlifting in Limerick going back so many years.
Yeah, it goes back there to the late 70s, early 70s. Tom Dillon formed, well, before him you had Paddy Phelan, the Gary Owen weightlifting club, and Tom Dillon, Jerm Mack, Tony Slattery, Paddy Barry, some of the old household names. They all trained out of the Gary Owen club, and that was kind of the birth of it in Limerick. And then Tom Dillon went and formed the South Hill Powerlifting Club, and Jerm Mack formed the Abbey Powerlifting Club at the time. And that was back in the early 80s, kind of late 70s, early 80s. And then Jerm Mack would have been, the first world champion ever in the country back then, and won numerous gold medals. And then leading into the early 90s, into the 2000s, the club started growing more. Tommy had really developed a fine team of lifters up above in the South Hill Powerlifting Club. I think the Abbey Club then closed in the 90s as well, and Ger and the lads came up and trained out at the South Hill Powerlifting Club. And in the early 2000s, Ger formed the Portugal Powerlifting Club in Maloney's Yard. So there's been a great history of powerlifting over the earlier decades, and then in the last number of years, dating back to the early 2000s, when Tom Dillon closed the South Hill Powerlifting Club, we founded the LPC, Limerick Powerlifting Club, which is Southside Barbell. We just slightly changed the name. So we've always been on the south side of the city, the same area of the South Hill Powerlifting Club. We're actually just based at the factories at the back of South Hill. So we've always had a strong hold in powerlifting nationally. Limerick's been known as the home of Irish powerlifting, to the amount of champions it has produced through the likes of coaches like Tom Dillon, Jerm Mack, Paddy Barry over the years, and myself for the last 15 years. I've coached quite a number of young lads and girls become European and world champions. So the Limerick Powerlifting Club Southside Barbell, we're going strong since 2011, 2012. And in the last few years, we have had UL have formed a powerlifting club. You have City Gym, and you have quite a other outlets now also starting to grow the powerlifting here in the city alone. So I think now at the moment there's a total of 8 clubs in Limerick City, which is great to see. Competition's always good, and the more gyms, the better. So yeah, the sport has grown, and the amount of females that have entered the sport in the last number of years has quadrupled. It's multiplied by tenfold. The girls are nearly outnumbering the males at this stage. It's become very popular. So Limerick most definitely is one of the bigger amount of clubs in the country. Probably still has the biggest number of clubs in any city in this country.
Darragh, when you hear Shane list off the names like a Tommy Dillon, and you're of course you're sitting alongside Shane now, and you see kind of all the champions that have been produced across the city in the various different clubs. For a guy starting out in your career like you, is it a challenge? Is it an inspiration? Is it something you aim for? Are you aware, I suppose, of the kind of the history that's gone there?
I'd be aware of it. Yeah, it's definitely, I wouldn't say a challenge, but it's kind of inspiring. Just a lot of people to look up to in Limerick, especially, like being a big name for powerlifting. But it's a great atmosphere, around the place, and especially going to Shane's gym now, it's just good, and you're with the best coach, like, and you're training away, like, so it's great, like.
And for yourself there, I suppose, plans for the rest of the year, hopefully if we can avoid lockdowns and if we can still maintain some level of travel, are there other competitions on the horizon, or is that down to the coach?
There's nationals next year anyway, and you if I'm right to say, you have to do that to qualify for the Europeans and the Worlds. And then the Europeans ran in Hungary, next year. So that'll be a nice trip away again, nice holiday.
And of course, Shane, it's always important for these lads to have something to aim for, isn't it? And I it's one thing that I always notice about the powerlifting fraternity and the competitions, that there always seems to be an event on the horizon that you're planning for, training for, preparing for. It's unlike rugby or other sports that have seasons, powerlifting is kind of continual, isn't it? Did you peak for an event, you come back, or what's it like?
Yeah. So basically, very much like rugby, actually, and hurling and everything, we have a season. The season kind of would always start mid to late February and run till maybe the start of November. And so we'd usually class November into December as kind of downtime. We might let the lads off the program and just do some of their own kind of programming or normal training and back off the heavy stuff completely. The season now, and there's so many comps. We have the national single lifts now, which will be in February, and then in March, the end of March, last week of March after St. Patrick's weekend, we have the national full power championships, and that will run us right into the European championships in Hungary, and that's going to be early May, maybe June, and then now at the moment we have tested and non-tested lifters, so we might have the tested European championships in one area of Europe, and the non-tested could be in another country. So we always have lifters training, and the program works out. Most programs we run are for 12 to 14, maybe 16 weeks, depending on the time and the window we have, and then you might only have a 6-week turnaround, in any program if you have a championships that's 6 weeks later. But all guys now need to lift at nationals in 2022 across the board. I know there was some lifters recently interviewed and they weren't sure whether they had to lift or if they were to do nationals or not. All lifters have to do nationals, even though if you won the World Championships 2 weeks ago. You still need to go and compete at nationals to qualify for next year's Worlds. You don't get a golden ticket. That has always been the policy and the way we did our qualifying each year for national. You do your nationals to qualify for international events, just like an Olympic runner. If he wins the Olympics or he wins the Worlds, he's got to get his qualifying times in to qualify him for the next Olympics. The very same type of system. So.
It keeps it puts a great emphasis on the national competitions in that sense, though, Shane, doesn't it? I mean, you can't get around them. If you want to go to the top end of the sports, you have to compete in your national divisions.
Yeah, that's it. Because just because you may have won the Worlds this year doesn't mean that you're the number one lifter, not alone in the world but in Ireland. Because there's someone else that might have not competed last year that gave you the opportunity to go. That lifter could be back next year. He could be a stronger lifter. And if he wins the nationals, that's his right to take that body weight and the age category. So, and that's the qualifying system. And so it really puts the nationals in great importance to all lifters, because, as I said, you're a world champion today, but tomorrow there's someone waiting to beat you, It's the same for records. Whatever record you break today, there's someone training tomorrow to break that record,
Darragh, in your division and in your class, I suppose, what's progression going to look like for you, or what's the plan for you, I suppose, over the next couple of years in the sport?
Well, this last World Championships now, I was in the under 90 kg AIPO multiply lifts. So there wasn't anyone actually in my division. So as Shane was telling me, there's not actually many people my age in the multiply, because it's kind of another extreme to powerlifting. Like, you get raw and classic raw and single multiply, so it's all just different levels. But I'm playing football as well, so I'm going back to classic raw now for the next national championships. So yeah, just looking forward to that now.
Yeah, and great enjoyment out of the sport.
Oh yeah, keeps you going.
so a note on that, like, when Darragh came to the club, he really stood out, as in his strength levels, his ability to move weight, the velocity of the bar moving off the ground, and the speed, everything was there, everything showed massive ability to lift weights, and that was when he was lifting raw. And here's the thing, you know, he kind of put his hand to Robbie. He's gifted. GA, he's gifted. You know, he's an all-rounder. We've had young lads like him before here in the club. A young lad by the name of Kieran Bennett. He was a great footballer, rugby player, hurling. And he came in at 16 years of age and pulled 265 kilos off the ground at 75 kilo body weight. An Irish record that still stands today. So there is certain young lads that just have the ability all around. And Darragh would be one of them. So when Darragh did the nationals and that, and he broke all the Irish teenage records, and actually unofficially broke all the world records, you know, he didn't get them because we weren't at an international comp with 3 international judges to pass the record. So that's why they wouldn't stand. But as we were coming up to the Worlds, you know, about 2 or 3 months out, Darragh said to me, he says, I'd love to try the quick lifting, you know. So a lot of lifters out there, a lot of the new generation lifters don't understand the difference between equipment and raw. So, you know, you put on the equipment and they think, oh, you lift anything, but it's actually a harder system. It's harder to perfect. It's to work harder. Everything is more challenging, and Darragh's always up for a challenge.
Yeah.
You know, Darragh's first squat at the World Championships, they were being super strict on the depth, and you know, we were strict, so it's usually hip crease below the top of the knee, but they wanted us down an extra 2 or 3 inches. So Darragh went out, and we had to push him real deep into the squat, and boom, nose just busted out bleeding. It's destroyed his t-shirt and all that. But like, you know, that's the pressure it takes in the suits. So, you know, this thing out there that some lifters have this attitude that, oh, you can lift anything in a suit. I have loads of suits here. I have over 30 suits here in the club. If anyone wants to come and try quick lifting, they're more than welcome and see how easy it is.
One thing you said there, and I suppose it's almost kind of like the physics and the science behind it, between the velocity and of the bar, and like there's a huge amount of technical kind of know-how, and I mean, it's not just strength is only one factor of it, but technique and movement and all that. There's so many other aspects of it that people just think, sure, look, you're a big lump, you'll go in. It doesn't translate
like that, you know, the rules and you know, the technical side of it, and so many different aspects to, you know, the rules of the competition itself. You know, anyone, as you said, like, you know, if you look at a strongman doing a deadlift, and here's the thing, they're not cutting strongmen in any way or form. What their requirements are is to get the bar from the ground. They can use straps, they can use suits like us and that, like, and they can hitch it up their thighs. That's the way the technique is accepted within their rules, and these guys are incredibly strong. They're super athletes, you know. And you often hear a lot of controversy. Oh, that's a crap lift. He's hitching it and this and that. But that's allowed within strongman, and that's strongman lifting. Powerlifting is quite different. You know, you can't hitch, you can't use your thighs for leverage or anything like that. They're all technical fails, you know. So I won't. As I said, I don't want to knock strongman, but the lift is just a little bit kind of cleaner, and you can't use straps. But you know, they're 2 completely different sports, you know. So we don't compare. I personally don't compare them off each other, you know, because of that, the technical rules. But yeah, a lot of people. I've had lads come here and train with me from other gyms, and they would have done strongman in the past, or were currently doing strongman and switched over to powerlifting, and came in, and you got to work with them from the ground, and you spend weeks, and I mean weeks, trying to perfect their technique for powerlifting. They're coming up the bar, and they're strong guys, and then they're just hitching it and jolting it off the ground and not bracing, and you know, and giving all your time and effort to these lads, and then, like, you know, to see them go, some people going back to the bad habits after they finish training with us and stuff, you know. But yeah, it's so much time and effort to get to perfect it for powerlifting. Like, you know, the techniques are completely different.
And I suppose it's you know, apart from the technique being important to actually get your lifts correct and to get your lifts to qualify for the competition, it's also crucial to prevent injury as well. That's a massive factor of it as well, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, if you look, you create your own weaknesses. If your form is sloppy, you know, you're not bracing, you're not engaging the right muscle groups, you know, you're going to create weaknesses. That's how you snap a tendon when you're doing the deadlift, or, you know, when you jolt that bar off the ground if you don't apply the correct form and technique. it's a roll of the dice, you know. You see fellas, you know, dropping into squats and looking for a bounce at the bottom, and yeah, injury is a massive factor, and 9 times out of 10 people that get injured are down to their own stupidity, you know, and not focusing on what they should be doing. Look, when you start a new job and you're in a warehouse, you've got to go on a manual handling course to learn how to pick up a box correctly. Weightlifting, powerlifting is all the same. You got to apply the same principles, and if you don't do that, you will get injured, you know.
Darragh, I suppose working with a guy like this and training under a guy like this with that kind of depth of knowledge, is every day a school day when you come to the gym?
Oh, it will be. Yeah, you're learning every day. Like, there's the best athletes in here, like, so, and they're all very helpful. Like, you have the likes of Shane and all Paddy and Martin and everyone helping, like, every day, and you're just learning every day. Like a young fella coming into the gym, like, with a small bit of knowledge, like, not too much, but yeah, just learning every day. Like, so it's great.
Here's the thing, we're all still learning, you know. Science has changed the sport so much, and you know, advanced programming, and you know, people overtraining and not understanding the system. But at the end of the day, you know, I learn. Someone can come in new into the sport, apply something to me, and I go, yeah, that makes sense. And you know, so you'll never stop learning. The day you think you know it all, that's the day you go backwards.
Yeah, and I suppose finally I leave the final word to you, Shane. Look at, you know, with the club back and with people coming back to gyms and all in the last few months, and I suppose the importance of that outlet, regardless what it is, whether it's powerlifting or whether it's running or whatever sport it is that you can get involved in, the difference that outlet makes to people's mental health and having people back in the gym. I suppose, what's it been like for you, you know, having people back and having that interaction that you would have probably missed during the lockdown, and I suppose and hopes for the next kind of 12 months for the gym?
Well, yeah, you know, look, I mean, the club was surely missed during COVID, you know, but we train here in the club as a team, you know. Every day when you see one of the lads coming in the door, it's great to see him, you know what I mean. You know, the enjoyment of being here and working together and helping each other. We're like a little family, you know. When we went out to the Worlds, the 6 of us, we were there for each other, you know. Everyone, you know, it's a big thing here. The ethos of the club here is like, you know, there's no one better than anyone here. We're all equal, you know, whether you're squatting 100 kilos or 400 kilos, you know, we all help each other. If you don't want to help and you don't want to be part of the team here at Southside Barbell, we don't have a place for people that don't want to be team players, you know. So this is very much a club. It's not a commercial gym, you know. So when you come through the door here, the ethos says a team player, you know. So as I said, you know, we did very well at the Worlds, you know. The whole team, from myself and Darragh, Martin and Matney, you know, lifters like him for the first time out there, a Master 1 lifter in the 100 kilo category to take the overall Master Championship, not just his weight class and that, like, but to win the overall in the Masters highest points. That in itself for the first time out was excellent to see. We had young Oisin Smith, which is just turned 16, breaking 4 world teenage records. You know, so all these memories coming back to the club. And then we had Ray Foley did the 125 Masters category. So Ray won his division in his weight category at an age group, and won the single lift bench press also on the Thursday. And then we had Mark Cosgrove that won the 90 kilo open class in the Raw division. So, you know, six lifters from the club, all taking gold. Darragh breaking teenage world squat record and deadlift record was massive. Like, you know, first time out and equip lifting and doing that, you know, great to see as well. Like, so the club is at a great height at the moment, you know. It was a big championships. It could have been bigger due to COVID, some of the restrictions with countries, people weren't allowed to travel. So numbers were a little low, other than the Wednesday, which ran into early hours of the morning. That wasn't an issue for any of us. We were at the venue from 6:30 in the morning to the following morning at 6. but you know, because we had lifters lifting throughout the day. So, you know, but that's just the way the sport runs. And if it runs late, it runs late. And yeah, you know, coming back here to the club and the lads that helped us throughout the year, training, Richie, Thomas Horn, both of them, massive help, Paddy Phelan, Nicola, some of the names, Jamie Hogan and the rest of the lads, Dave Fitz, that had gone to the Europeans earlier in the year by himself and won the Europeans and won the best overall champion. These people in the club are what makes it is. Gary Ahern and all the lads that were a part of the team every evening, giving the lads a hand. I wanted to thank them all personally. I know I'm forgetting names because that's me trying to remember names, Sarah and Gavin and the rest of the lads. The club's got over 70 or 80 members, so to all the lads that helped here at the club, you know, we'd like to say on behalf of the 6 lads that travelled away, thank you all for your help, and our wives and girlfriends and whatever for putting up with us. And that, you know, you can never forget the wives and girlfriends, because when you have a bad night in the gym and you go home, they're the ones listening to you. If someone upsets you in the gym, they're the ones listening to you. You know, if you go to the Worlds and you don't do so good, they're the ones listening to you, and they're the ones that go and support you. So, you know, to all them and all the people involved with the IPO, we'd like to thank them. And, you know, and we hope to see the federation grow and the club grow. We're always open to new members here. You know, we're willing to help anyone, any age, male or female, any body type, tall, little bit plump, little bit underweight. We'll come and we'll work with you. Everyone's welcome. You know, everyone's equal. Come in the door, talk to us. You know, we like to see the numbers grow in the club, and we love helping people here. So, yeah, and well done to Darragh for his world records and that again. Like, you know,
very much, yeah.
You know, young fellas got a massive future in the sport, massive future, and the rest of the lads on the team as well. You know.